You're live.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Good evening and welcome to this Northwest Area Planning Committee meeting on the 8th of October 2025. My name is Councillor Mark Durham and I am the chairperson of this committee. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak, and I'll then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table as this could create an interference with the cameras and the live stream? Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of microphones. Therefore, can I ask, when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and then turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers, and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. We do not have a fire alarm testing scheduled for this evening. However, we may have periodic fire alarms, and I remind members to ensure that they sign in and sign out when entering the council offices. And if you hear a fire alarm, please exit using either the two marked fire escape routes. Once out of the building, please proceed to the designated muster point located on the grass verge by the police station entrance. So item 2 is apologies for absence. Clerk, have we any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We have received an apology for absence from Councillor Stevens.
Although Councillor Stevens is very much here, alive and kicking. So, right, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed. So the minutes, it's recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of September, found on pages 7 to 12, are approved as a true record. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thompson, thank you. Is everybody content with those minutes? Thank you very much indeed. Item 4 is declarations of interest to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests related to items of business on the agenda. Having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members, you are also reminded that you are required to disclose any such interest as soon as you become aware, should the need arise through the meeting. I am going to just move the two main items on the agenda around, because one is going to be, I think, a fairly short item and one will be a longer item. So we're going to take item 6 before item 5, if members are in agreement. I'm not hearing anybody protest loudly. So we're taking item 6, which is 25/00545, Barn at Rosemary Cottage, Barnhall Road, Tolleshunt, Knights, and Mr. Bailey is to present. Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an application for a change of use of a holiday let to a dwelling house. There is a short members update on this item, as you will have seen, that principally relates to parish council consultation. The note provides more detail, but to summarise, the parish council chairman has now provided comments on the application, which have been included in the update, and some clarifications within the report have been provided where necessary. I will come on to those shortly. The update also highlighted a minor correction in relation to the site access point, and mistitled reference to a water tower, which should not have been in the report. Apologies. This is the site location. We're about 1 kilometre to the east of Tolleshunt Knights, along Barnhall Road here. we're outside of any defined settlement boundary. This is the existing site layout. You can see the existing property known as the Long Barn here, which is in lawful holiday let use, with its separate access from Barnhall Road along here, with a tree-lined shingle driveway leading to a large garden at the rear. Just a few photographs. This is the access point, the two access points rather, one to Rosemary Cottage and to the Long Barn on the left. This is the existing shingle driveway leading up to the barn. The side elevation of the holiday let unit with the parking to the rear. This is the rear of the building as viewed from Rosemary Cottage to the east of the site. And finally, the rear elevation of the building away from the road, which includes a covered carport area. So the application we are considering here seeks permission for the change of use of an existing holiday let, which was granted permission in 2009, to residential use. As the report explains, and as set out in quite some detail with the applicant's documents, the long-term owners of the property had successfully operated a holiday let business at the site up until 2000, when obviously the onset of the COVID pandemic resulted in a dramatic reduction in occupancy to the extent that the operation was no longer viable for the owners. At that point in time, the business was put onto the market as a holiday let business, whilst in the meantime, in the absence of any holiday bookings, the owners took the decision to let the property on a short-term tenancy basis as a temporary measure. The business was marketed intensively for over a year and actually continues to be advertised online. However, following a lack of interest across all of the various channels used, the applicant has now decided to seek a change of use of the Long Barn to residential. The proposal principally relates to the change of use of the barn. However, there are some minor alterations proposed to the building as part of the conversion. On plan, as you see here, this mainly includes improved planting to boundaries and for increased privacy in relation to the neighbouring property, and provision of waste and recycling facilities to the rear. In terms of floor plan changes, there are a series of alterations which seek to facilitate a fully residential use. As the plans here show, these include the infilling of the front carport area, which is now redundant, together with the removal of windows facing eastwards towards Rosemary Cottage to reduce any hint of overlooking whatsoever between the properties. Elevationally, the building will retain its rural character, albeit with a new glazed opening to the western facing gable, providing natural lighting to the living spaces, and, as noted, the removal of the carport to the front elevation with a brick to match the parapet level. Moving on to the summary, as the report sets out, it's acknowledged that the site is outside of a defined settlement boundary. However, officers consider that the proposed development is on balance acceptable. This takes into account the council's current shortfall in 5-year housing land supply and the tilted balance that is therefore comes into play, the limited scale of the proposal, and the fact that it comprises a conversion of an existing premises, not additional built form. The nature of the holiday let use and its sort of residential character in effect, and the comparative impact of the proposed residential use against that. The proposed alterations to the dwelling are limited and retain the rural character of the building, and the proposal would be acceptable with regards to highways, drainage, ecology and biodiversity. subject to mitigation through planning conditions and a contribution towards RAMs. The principal development is therefore considered acceptable as sustainable development and a departure from the local plan. The recommendation is that permission be granted subject to legal agreement and the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. There are no speakers on this. It's called in by Councillor Morley, I understand. So, members, over to you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we accept the officer's recommendation to approve. Do I have a seconder?
There's a rush to second. I think Councillor Morley got his hand just ahead of Councillor Thompson. So we have a proposal to follow the officer's recommendations to approve this application, seconded by Councillor Morley. Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous, so that is granted. Thank you very much indeed. That was as quick as I could go, Mr. Bailey. So you're free to.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Free to leave. Thank you very much. So now, members, we move to item 5, 25/00473 and 474. That's land adjacent to Westerings in Purleigh. Report to be found on pages 13 to 48. And Ms. Bradley, you are going to take us through this. Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. I'll just move over because I see things a bit easier. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Just moving on with this application, you'll recall that a members update was circulated yesterday for it, so I will take that as read, but can always answer questions if you have anything on it. What we're looking at here is 2 applications, and I just thought it was worthwhile. It is set out in the report, but I just wanted to make it clear in terms of the context, in terms of what you're looking at this evening in terms of decision making. So the first application, 00473, has been appealed due to non-determination. So any decision you take tonight is a minded to decision. So it's what you would have done had you been able to make the decision on it. And that's because the decision for this now lies with the Planning Inspectorate. The other application, which is identical, 474, you can make a decision as you normally would on this. So that the power of decision making for 474 lies with you. So there are 2 identical applications. One's going down the route of being determined by the Planning Inspectorate. The other can be determined by you. So this is the location plan shown in red here. Just to highlight a couple of things, we've got the school in this location here. This road here is Westerings, which I'll be referring to, and this is Hawthorns here. This road here is Callowwood Croft, and we've got the glebe running along to the south here, and this is the location of the village hall. This is the framework plan that's been submitted with the application. So the application is an outline form with the means of access only being considered and all other matters being reserved for later consideration. So the submitted framework plan shows the extent of land to be used for open space, play area, landscaping, surface water attenuation and other green infrastructure. It shows the location of parcels of residential development within the site, and also this here is the access point for the site. It's the vehicular access and also pedestrian and cycle access. You will have probably read about it in the report, but I just wanted to highlight Sally's Path, which is a permissive path, so not a public footpath, runs adjacent to number 17 Westerings, which is just along here. So from the Westerings through here to the rear of the village hall. So if you've read about Sally's Path, that's where it is. So just running through the photographs from out on site. So the first one is from Westerings looking south into the site, the southeastern part of the site here. This is the view from the southeastern corner of the site. So this is Sally's Path here, and this is number 17 Westerings in this location, with the site being over here. This is taken from the western boundary of the site looking east, so back down towards 17 Westerings on and the southern boundary of the site is along here. So this is on the site adjacent to the southern boundary, again looking northeast here, and this is the dwelling at number 16 Westerings here. And this is sort of at the top of the site in the southwestern corner looking north. And again, this is in a similar location in the northwestern corner looking northeast, and the dwellings on Westerings are here, and then dwellings on the Hawthorns are in this location, with the school building over in this location here. This is a view from the site taken from the rear of the village hall, so looking towards the site here. This is now standing on the Hawthorns, looking at the proposed access to the site in this location here. And this is then at the access point, looking northeast towards the school, and you can just make out the roof of the school building in this location. And that's then looking north across the site from the access from Hawthorns there. So as set out in the report, the site is located outside any defined settlement boundary, so it's in the countryside for planning policy purposes. However, at this time, the council doesn't have a 5-year housing land supply, and therefore the tilted balance in favour of sustainable development applies. When considering the sustainability of the site, officers have taken into account the facilities and services available in the village and access to, albeit limited, public transport, and concluded that the site is a sustainable location. This view is supported by inspectors and planning appeal decisions as set out in the report. Accordingly, the principle of development is acceptable. The proposal would provide 55 homes, 22 of which would be affordable, and this housing provision is a significant public benefit. There is a significant amount of concerns that have been raised by the parish council and also local residents, particularly in regard to parking in the vicinity, and that's particularly around the school drop-off and pick-up times. When I visited the site, I made sure it was during a school pick-up time and saw that, yes, the area is heavily parked by people collecting children from the school. However, it's pertinent to note that there's been no objection raised by the Highways Authority regarding highway safety, and on that basis, a reason for refusal on highway safety grounds could not be justified. Other impacts, such as flood risk, impacts on ecology and biodiversity, heritage, archaeology, landscape and visual impacts, are either acceptable, can be mitigated, or do not outweigh the benefits of the proposal in the planning balance. The impacts on residential amenity are acceptable at this stage, but would be considered in detail at reserved matters stage. So in terms of the recommendation, as I say, there are the two applications. The first one is a minded to approve, and the second one is also is to approve, subject to a legal agreement and the conditions set out in the report, and that's including the amended conditions 23 and 25 as per the member update. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have 3 speakers for this, and I will take Mr. Wood, who is the agent, first. Mr. Wood, take a seat. I think you know the routine, and you have 2 minutes, which will be appearing sometime on the...
Yes, I just need to remember how to do it.
Okay. There we are. So your 2 minutes will start when you start speaking, and I'm afraid I will be cutting you off pretty much dead on time. So, Mr. Wood, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening to members. As you will have read, officers confirmed the sustainability credentials of Purleigh in supporting these well-considered proposals as endorsed by recent appeal inspectors. This includes walkable access to a number of local facilities in the village to support day-to-day needs, including public transport provision. The site's location adjacent to the primary school is another key consideration here. It is important to add that agreed the 106 heads of terms include a contribution towards improving public transport and new bus stops in close proximity of the site. As set out in the committee report, independent consideration of the local landscape confirms that any associated impacts of the proposals would be localised and not result in substantial harm. In respect of highways, it is important to reiterate that the Highway Authority has raised no objection to these proposals, and therefore we agree with officers that it is unlikely that a reason for refusal on these grounds could be substantiated. We also wish to draw your attention to ECC to education feedback, which states that the proposals could in fact reduce school run traffic. As confirmed within the committee report, the 106 contributions, including towards healthcare, highways and education, are agreed, with these important contributions ensuring improvements to supporting the infrastructure as a result of these proposals. The committee report concludes that the environmental, economic and social benefits to the village and the wider district, including the delivery of much needed market and affordable housing, weigh heavily in favour of these proposals, a finding that we fully endorse. As also concluded in the committee report, any adverse impacts associated with this proposal would not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The applicant would also like to confirm that should planning permission be granted, they agree to withdraw the current non-determination appeal on the site. Thank you very much for your time.
Very good timing. Thank you, Mr. Wood. Next, we'll go to Elizabeth Johns, who is the representative of the parish. Parish Council, I should say. Same rules, 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
Chairman, members of the committee, Purleigh Parish Council strongly recommend refusal of both of these applications for the reasons set out in its written representations to the council. These proposals are wholly inappropriate for our parish and conflict directly with the Maldon Local Development Plan and the National Planning Policy Framework. They would cause unacceptable harm to the character, appearance and rural setting of our village. The site lies outside the defined settlement boundary, where development should be strictly controlled to protect the countryside from unnecessary and irreversible urban sprawl. The scale and the design of what is proposed are out of keeping with the surrounding area in both density and appearance. It would significantly alter the rural landscape and undermine the distinct identity of Purleigh. The parish council also has serious concerns regarding highway safety so close to a primary school, drainage and the lack of local infrastructure to support developments of this nature and this size. Importantly, these applications offer no clear community benefit that would outweigh the substantial environmental harm they would cause. The council's position is that approving them would set a damaging precedent for development on open countryside and erode the careful balance between growth and preservation that the local plans seek to maintain. For these reasons, Purleigh Parish Council urges Maldon District Council to refuse both applications in order to protect the rural character, safety, environment and sustainability of our parish and its surrounding landscapes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. Time to spare. We now move to Mr. Horner, who is an objector. And the same rules apply, Mr. Horner, 2 minutes from when you start to speak.
The residents of Purleigh are in strong opposition to this application, which conflicts with the adopted Maldon District LDP and, if approved, would cause lasting harm to our village and community. The application is contrary to several key policies, including policies S1, 2 and 8 for sustainable development. The site lies outside the defined village boundary, is not identified as a strategic growth location and encroaches onto unallocated countryside. This would damage both the landscape and low-density rural character of Purleigh. Policy T1, sustainable transport. The national framework states that the planning should maximise opportunities for public transport, walking and cycling. Purleigh has a wholly inadequate provision, especially for people of working age who need transport to get to work. There is no safe walking routes, no cycleways. Paths are narrow and unlit and largely confined to the village centre. New residents will be forced to rely on private vehicles, placing further strain on our unsuitable narrow roads. Policy N2, natural environment. The loss of habitat and disruption caused by this development will cause lasting ecological harm, impacting on the natural intrinsic beauty of the countryside. This proposal places a significant strain on public services and outdated infrastructure. We challenge the report submitted by the service providers. Sewage infrastructure is already overburdened and spilling into the Blackwater and land. Utilities such as water, power and internet are stretched to capacity. Construction would create further risk, posing unacceptable dangers to pupils and residents. The noise, dust and heavy traffic could not realistically be managed at safe levels around the school. The application is inconsistent with the LTB and national framework, is disproportional in scale, undermines suitable development and the impact significantly outweighs the benefits. For these reasons, we respectfully urge you to reject this application.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to members, but I'm going to let Councillor Whiffin go first because you've specifically requested that.
Thank you. I've made a few notes to help address a number of residents' questions. I wish to make it clear I'm not predetermined and I'll wait to the end of the debate to vote. I would ask for clarity and help on the following matters. Firstly, I would like to draw members to the Planning Inspector's decision on the 9th of September for Glebe Way at Southminster, reference APP X1545 W2533674009. Paragraph 51. An appeal should be determined in accordance to the development plan unless material considerations indicated otherwise. The benefits of the scheme and the framework are important. In my opinion, they do not. The benefits do not outweigh the harm to the small village as designated in policy S8, page 45 of the LDP, when alternative sites are available within larger villages and towns. Paragraph 11 says, in the inspector's view, and I believe it is relevant to this site, it is not a sustainable location applying the spatial strategy in the development plan. This would be harmful given the public interest in having a planning system that provides consistency and direction. I would draw members' attention also to page 14, policy S1, sustainable development, items 12 and 13, which state maintain the rural character of the district without compromising the identity of its individual settlements. And item 13, minimise the need to travel and where travel is necessary, prioritise sustainable modes of transport and improve access for all in the community. So my first question would be, amended conditions 23 and 25 highlights the need for an ecological expert to be present during construction, therefore clearly acknowledging the presence of wildlife habitats. The Wildlife Trust's report also calls for additional survey reports. Incidentally, from what I've read, they are objecting to this application and call to remind MDC of their legal duty under the NERC Act 2006. They state within their report that reptile populations cannot be concentrated and maintained at their existing numbers on a significantly smaller scale. Can you confirm if this is accurate, and has the additional aforementioned survey reports been obtained and submitted yet?
Right, I'm going to let... That's right, okay, I think that's the first question to address.
Do you want me to keep going? Or?
No, I think we'll do... I think.
Shall we go one by one? So in terms of just referring back to the Southminster appeal, yes, it's quite right that legislation requires that the starting point for determining applications is the development plan. However, what we've got is a situation at the moment where we've got no 5-year housing land supply, and then that calls into question our spatial strategy. And that is why limited weight is given to that part of the local plan, because we don't have a spatial strategy. Well, because we don't have up-to-date policies that enable that, and a 5-year housing land supply. So the starting point is the development plan. However, circumstances at the moment, because of the lack of 5-year housing land supply, tip the balance. That's why we've got the tilted balance. But members are quite entitled to disagree with officers in terms of our consideration, should you want to. Regarding ecology, Place Services Ecology has removed their holding objection that they had, so there's no longer an objection to it. They have requested a number of conditions be imposed, and that's to ensure that through the development they're satisfied that there is no ecological harm. So at the moment we don't have a reason for refusal in terms of ecology because our ecology specialist has no objection to it.
Okay.
Sorry, that one was in the Wildlife Trust's report.
The Wildlife Trust report has been taken into account. However, our specialist advisor is Place Services, and they have come back having assessed all the information and have raised no objection. So in terms of their specialist advice, we haven't raised an objection on that ground.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Also, sorry, for clarity, if both applications are now identical, does that not class as twin-tracked application? The second application that's still live, so 474, was amended during the course of the application. I think in terms of timing, following the submission of the appeal. So they are now identical. They weren't identical when they were submitted to the council for consideration. So we are now looking at essentially a twin-track system.
Okay.
So, sorry, is that allowed?
Yes, it is.
Councillor Whiffen, yeah, okay.
Sorry, bear with me 1 second. I've also got, Purleigh is a small rural community, and I'm sure most would agree that this proposal would have a harmful impact, representing roughly about an 11% growth. Also, whilst this will no doubt come at reserved matters stage of a construction management plan, can the officers tell the committee and residents how are extra buses meant to pass construction traffic when two small cars can't even pass safely in most cases? Sadly, there was recently been a serious accident with 2 fatalities in Hawthorne, which is another small village, last week, and the B1010 is 2 lanes. So how is Purleigh meant to cope?
You're quite right. We have recommended that there's a construction management plan be submitted to cover that sort of information. But also I fall back on the fact that we haven't had an objection from the Highways Authority on that ground. So it hasn't formed a reason for refusal on highway safety grounds.
And I will add that the fatal accident in Hawthorne, which we can't discuss because it's currently under investigation, but by all accounts is a result of drink and drug driving, so that's not really a relevant highway matter.
I would ask whether Highways actually visited the area and not just had a quick look on Google Earth. The reason for this question is that the Westerings was constructed during the 1960s and the road was meant to accommodate 20 houses in a cul-de-sac, making it now totally unsuitable to be used as a through road to a much larger development. Any local resident will attest to the fact that during school drop-off and collection times, the road becomes totally impassable. There have already been incidents where refuse and emergency vehicles, namely an ambulance, have been unable to gain access due to parked cars on both sides of the road in the Westerings. Highways' updated assessment asks for a £170,000 contribution for ECC to improve public transport links. And I understand a small local bus costs on average £1,000 a week to run. My concern is what happens in year 4 when that money's been used up.
I'm not aware whether or not the Highways Authority officer visited the site or not, so I can't answer that. I can only say that I've visited the site. In terms of the financial contribution, we can't ask for a financial contribution for money in perpetuity. So the money that would come forward is to fund additional services over and above what's required, and that is the amount that's been proposed by the Highways Authority.
Okay, thank you.
Have you any more, Councillor Whiffen?
Sorry, another thing I'd just like to say is that car dependency is high, bus services are poor, roads are narrow and accidents are plentiful. This development would contradict paragraph 111 of the MPPF, therefore.
Okay, that's a statement, I guess, then, rather than a question. Thank you, Councillor Whiffen. Councillor Stevens. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. A question, please. I'd like to understand this car park that was withdrawn from the second application, and withdrawing the car park has made the two applications twins. Was Essex Highways comment made before or after the car park was withdrawn? I'd just like to understand why has this car park been withdrawn, because it sounds like it's going to exacerbate all the problems we've just heard about. Thank you.
The comments from the Highways Authority came in following the withdrawal of the removal of the car park, and the car park actually caused a lot of consternation amongst residents as well. So it on its own caused a number of issues. So removing that has resolved a couple of consultee comments that were made.
Yes, of course, Councillor Stevens, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so I just want to understand, make sure I've understood, because well, maybe I haven't. So we've got these two applications. So if we approve the one that we're actually free to properly approve tonight, I would assume the applicant would then withdraw their appeal. But has it gone so far that we might get costs awarded against us anyway? And if we refuse, could both applications potentially go to appeal with potential for awarding double the costs against us? I'd just like to understand. Maybe I've asked the wrong question. Perhaps you could just tell me more. Thank you.
Oh, that's an interesting question, actually. As it stands, if members are minded to approve the application that you can determine, then that would mean that the applicants have said that if that happens, they will withdraw. Sorry. If the application's granted, the applicant has said that they will withdraw the appeal, which makes sense because there's no reason they would want to continue with it when they've already got planning permission. And that could be unreasonable of them to continue with it. So there would be no interest in them in doing that. If the application is refused, the one 474, the one that we can determine, I would think it would be very unlikely that the applicant would then appeal that one, because there's no reason for them to do so. We've got an appeal underway at the moment, and that would be the one that they would run with. I don't see any reason why they would want to go down that route. And saying that, the appeal that's in at the moment is in very early stages. In fact, it's not a valid appeal yet. So it's in the process, but we don't have a start date for it yet. So it hasn't gone down that sort of formal route of knowing what the timeframes are and when the hearing would be and that sort of thing. So it is very early days. So in terms of costs at the moment, there's not a particular issue if members are minded to approve and then they withdraw that one. So I would say it would be a single appeal and they'd go down that route if this one's withdrawn, if this one's refused.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining. So it's going to come down to whether we believe this is sustainable, and it's a really tough one. The report acknowledges that harms and benefits aren't scored, so you don't end up with it being 60% benefit and 40% harm or anything, and they're not scored, they're not quantifiable. They're therefore quite subjective. It's down to our opinions as to whether the benefits outweigh the harms. And I'm very tempted by the housing, and I'm always tempted by the right social housing in the right place, but I'm just not quite seeing it here. I mean, I'll listen to other members' views, but it just isn't quite adding up for me here. there's mention in here about putting conditions on the housing, but I'm not quite seeing really that we'd be able to specify exactly we want this social house to have 4 bedrooms and we want this affordable first home to have 2 bedrooms. I don't think it would be as specific as that, unless I've got that wrong. So if we can't secure that precise measure at this point, we're just we're opening ourselves to anything being developed. And I can't see that the benefits of that do outweigh the harms. Thank you.
I think I'm going to probably preempt, this is an outline, so of course at reserve matters we would be able to stipulate exactly what you're suggesting, Councillor Stevens, at reserve matter stage.
But not now. And in the report it talks about securing a mix through conditions, but I don't think we can, and that's what I just want to understand.
Well, that's smugly.
The mix would be secured through the reserve matters application. So you're quite right. At the moment, we don't know quite what we would get. That would come at reserve matters stage. So at the moment, we would be looking at securing an amount of affordable housing and the type of tenure mix that we would be wanting to secure. But it would be at reserve matters stage that we'd be saying X amount 1 bed, X amount 2 bed, that sort of thing.
Councillor Siddle.
I apologise, I was because of my cough, so I won't be voting as I had to leave because I was coughing so much. But I would like to back up what Councillor Stevens is saying, and I find it really disappointing that we get these outline applications which are so vague and non-specific. And when in the report it talks about the quality of the design at 5.4 and the quality of the build, and well, it's just total nonsense because there isn't anything specific in there about those particular things. So yeah, I know we can't do anything about this, but I really would hope that in future that we don't have these outline applications. We have full applications, and if an applicant isn't ready to do a full application, we shouldn't be accepting it. We should be put in this position as members where basically we're making a decision on vagueness and nothingness and just a basic outline and then the developer is backing that up with, oh, it's going to be a fantastic design. We don't know that, and it's ridiculous that councillors are put in this decision, and I really hope that officers in future push developers to go to full application when they bring anything like this to the council. That's my point.
Please do.
Outline applications are allowed under legislation. We have absolutely no say in whether or not they can be submitted or not. What we can do at pre-application stage is suggest that full applications are submitted, but we're completely at the whim of the developer, so we've just got no say because legislation specifically allows for this type of application.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'd just like to add that I'm surprised that highways don't have any problem with the application, having driven in and out of Purleigh an awful lot in and around school time. It's chaotic. I'm really surprised. Thanks.
I'll let Councillor Whiffin come back. You've had a good go, Councillor Stevens. But
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. I'd also like to say that Purleigh is a very rural community and is already subject to cut-throughs in rush hour from the A12 via Danbury to the Dengie and surrounding areas.
okay, thank you. Councillor Morley. Oh, sorry, Councillor Morgan. Nearly close enough.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Whiffin is quite right in identifying this as a twin-track policy or proceedings, which is, I hasten to say a crafty tactic used by developers, but it does therefore put us, the planning authority, under pressure because we're facing an appeal as it is, and then we have another application in which to look at. And obviously, if we were minded to refuse that, that would put us obviously at a disadvantage. What I would ask actually is if it was minded not to approve the second application, Would this involve the invoking of the constitutional break? Perhaps the officer could advise.
Yes, it would, because you're looking at going against officer recommendation. I had been a little bit concerned about the first application, the appeal application, because of timing, but we would have enough time to invoke the constitutional break and come back at the next North Western Area Planning Committee with those reasons. So yes, we would go down that route.
In which case, Mr. Chairman, I suggest that, considering we've got a large public attendance here, and I'm sure a lot of people are looking in online, that the officer explains what the constitutional break is for their benefit.
I think that's very sensible, Councillor Moore. Ms Bradley.
It's going to refer to a sheet. So the constitutional break is something that is invoked when members are looking to overturn an officer recommendation. So in this case, we've got an officer's recommendation of approval. If members are minded to refuse the application, the constitutional break is invoked. And what that means is at the next planning committee, officers would bring back another report identifying what we think would be reasonable grounds for refusal. So setting out what reasons for refusal we think could be defended at appeal. Members need to be reminded that if we go down that route of constitutional break, we can't have any further debate at the next meeting. So any debate that you want to have and discussion that you want to have about the application, including reasons for refusal, should be discussed at this meeting, because the next meeting won't be a rerun of the application. It will purely be to ensure that if you're minded to refuse, that those reasons are acceptable to you, and that as officers we think they can be defended at appeal. I didn't have my microphone on for all of that.
Councillor Stevens, did you want to come back? You did indicate a little while ago.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. I agree with Councillor Hughes that I am very surprised Essex Highways haven't come up with any objections to this. I went there today just to have a look, and I'm really surprised about that, and I don't know if it's possible to use the constitutional break period to go back to them and ask a few more questions and make sure that they've not commented on the wrong one or the wrong place or something. I am just really surprised about that. I don't feel comfortable about approving it, even though they're supposed to be the experts in this subject. To me, it doesn't look the right place roads-wise to do this. The transport piece is, yeah, the report acknowledges that it's the poorest bus connectivity in the district, I think it says. There's no railway station within walking distance. So yes, you've got the option to walk somewhere, but where are you going to walk to? I mean, you're going to have to drive to work, really, because the buses aren't going to come back at all times of the day and evening and night. And yes, there's a plan to put in extra bus stops, but nevertheless, there isn't good street lighting. That's not really a public transport service. It's just a bit intermittent to perhaps take you to the shops from time to time. And this Sally's Path, I mean, you can tell from the name that it's going to be an old path, and that's right at the village edge. It is going to spoil the amenity value of that path and the village edge. To me, that is a greater harm than good. Thank you.
I'm going to ask a question, just a technicality. As there is an appeal been lodged, that appeal is on non-determination. If this committee is minded to refuse, and we have after the constitutional break, a list of reasons for refusal, will those be taken into account at the hearing, at the appeal hearing, or will it just be on the basis of non-determination?
Any reasons that the council puts forward for the appeal scheme would be what we would put in the council's statement of case. So they would be the reasons. That's the whole purpose of bringing 473 here tonight, is to find out what you as members would have been minded to do had you been able to make that decision. So what would happen is with the minded to decision, that's not a decision, with the minded to application, you would set out the reasons for refusal. With application 474, that would go through as normal with the usual reasons for refusal. What would then happen at appeal, assuming we carry on with the non-determination one, is yes, those reasons that the council puts forward would be the reasons for defending the appeal, which is why we would invoke the constitutional break. So we make sure that when we come back next time that they are defendable reasons.
A second part to that, would the non-determination be a significant factor in the appellant's case?
No, it's when it gets to appeal like that, the inspector, it's not a matter of whether it was not determined or whether it was determined, it's how the council then defends that case. Because sometimes you could have an appeal for non-determination where actually you as members might agree and say, yeah, we would be minded to approve that, and then we go back and talk to the applicant about how we then deal with the appeal where we've got sort of no reasons to defend it. But in this case, if members are minded to refuse it, as I say, that would then form the basis of the council's argument in terms of defending that appeal. So either way, whether it's non-determination or an appeal post-decision, it doesn't make a lot of difference in terms of how it's then dealt with by the planning inspectorate.
Thank you. Well, I can't see any other members indicating, but we have a recommendation to approve unless there's a contrary proposal.
Sorry, I'd just like to say again, you're talking about policies and reasons for why we'd be minded to refuse. I would just say again, it's outside of the settlement boundary and fails to meet the definition of sustainable development, in my opinion.
Okay, well, we can come to that in due course if there's a necessity. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I've heard some very good arguments against this proposal tonight, and I must admit, to go the other way, I would be doing that with a very heavy heart. But we are in tilt. We don't have a 5-year housing land supply. So unless the officer can tell me otherwise, we are dependent on whether this application is deemed to be sustainable or not. And I confess I've seen a great many other applications a good deal less sustainable than this one that have been deemed sustainable, both by ourselves and by the planning inspectorate. So, yeah, with a very heavy heart, I'm minded.
Are you heading towards a proposal to agree the officer's recommendation, Councillor Thompson? I'm not leading you, but we have to move this on.
Since we have to start with something on the table, Chairman, yes, if I can have that seconded, I will propose the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
No, but I am looking for a seconder, which is not forthcoming, so I'm afraid that falls. So looking for a proposal now to go against the officer's recommendation. Thank you. Is that seconded?
Yeah, seconded.
Thank you very much indeed. But we are going to need very sound the reasons for refusal, as well as the constitutional, which we take account of. So Councillor Whiffin has come up with quite a catalogue of reasons. Have anybody else got anything they wish to add? Yes, please.
Just coming back to Councillor Whiffin's suggestion, would you be looking at a single reason for refusal, which would then form around policies S1, S2, S8, probably T1 as well in terms of transport, and in terms of arguing that the site is in an unsustainable location? Is that the essence of it?
Yes, and obviously outside of the settlement boundary.
Now, I think we have two cases here, although the reasons for refusal are likely to be the same, but we are going to probably have to take them individually, aren't we? Yeah. So we're going to deal first with 00473, but we are minded to not approve this application. That's been proposed by Councillor Whiffin, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Those in favour of that proposal, please show. Well, that is a proposal to not approve, so contrary to the officer's recommendations. Proposed by yourself, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Please indicate. That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. So, right. So we have. Can you please show clearly, because I really want to. So, Councillor, keep your hands raised. So I have Councillor Whiffin, Councillor Morley, Councillor Miss White, Councillor Stevens, and Councillor Hughes. Those against, 1. So that is 473 dealt with. We are minded to refuse the application. We now do the same thing with 474. I take it we have the same proposer and seconder. Thank you. So those in favour of refusing 474, please show clearly. Councillor Whiffin, Councillor Morley, Councillor White, Stevens and Hughes. Those against. Councillor Thompson, abstention. I take it Councillor Morgan. So that again is refused. So we are invoking the constitutional break. So at the meeting, which I think is about 6th of December, isn't it? 5th of December.
No, November.
No, oh, November. Gosh, the year is flying by. We will come back and we will be receiving the reasons for refusal. So thank you very much indeed, members. That was, and I just would like to compliment Ms Bradley on really very clear answers to the questions. It really has been very helpful, certainly to me, and I'm sure to other members. So thank you very much indeed. So the next item on the agenda is any other business that the Chairman feels is urgent. There is none. So I close this meeting. Councillor Morgan, you're glaring at me. Have I missed something? No? Perhaps it's your normal look. So I close this meeting at 8:29. Thank you, members.